Imagine standing at the edge of a great abyss, staring into the unknown. You reach out for something or someone, but instead of warmth, you meet only cold rejection. It stings. It gnaws at your mind, whispering that you're not enough. But what if I told you that rejection is not the end, but the beginning? What if it is not a wall blocking your path, but a hidden doorway to something far greater? Carl Jung, one of the greatest minds in psychology, believed that within every rejection lies an untapped power, a force that, when understood, can transform the way we think, desire, and ultimately, the way we live. He called it the process of individuation, the journey of integrating the unconscious with the conscious mind. And at the heart of this lies an ancient secret, the art of inverse psychology. What if, instead of resisting rejection, you could harness it? What if, instead of seeing it as a loss, you could make it work in your favor? This is not wishful thinking. It is a principle deeply embedded in human nature, a force that has shaped the most influential figures in history. And once you understand how it works, you will never see rejection the same way again. The mind does not simply accept rejection. It fights against it. This resistance creates a paradox. The more something is withheld from us, the more we crave it. It is a phenomenon that governs everything from human relationships to power dynamics, from marketing strategies to the deepest recesses of our psyche. Jung understood this intimately, recognizing that our unconscious desires are often shaped by what we are denied. The forbidden, the unattainable, it all becomes fuel for an unrelenting desire. But the question remains, how can you use this force to your advantage? How can you shift the pain of rejection into a tool for transformation, a weapon that works in your favor? The answer lies within your mind, waiting to be unlocked. Rejection is not merely an obstacle. It is a mirror. It reflects the deepest, most hidden parts of your psyche, your insecurities, your fears, and most importantly, your unspoken desires. Jung believed that the unconscious mind does not communicate in words, but in symbols and emotions. When you experience rejection, it is as if your unconscious is speaking directly to you, revealing something you may not yet fully understand. Think back to a time when you were rejected. Maybe it was by a person you deeply cared for, a job you desperately wanted, or a dream you pursued with all your heart, only to watch it slip away. What happened next? Did you simply let go and move on? Or did the rejection create a deeper craving, a fire that refused to die? This is the power of inverse psychology at play. When something is withheld from us, it becomes more desirable. The mind is wired to chase what it cannot have. Jung's theory of individuation tells us that our psyche is constantly trying to integrate the unconscious with the conscious. Rejection disrupts this process, forcing the unconscious mind to rebel. It turns the absence of something into an obsession. This is why people often yearn for lost love, why denied opportunities seem more valuable, and why forbidden knowledge is the most enticing of all. But most people remain trapped in this cycle, endlessly chasing what eludes them, never realizing that the real power lies not in the pursuit, but in understanding the mechanism itself. What if you could reverse this process? Instead of being controlled by rejection, what if you could use it to your advantage? The key lies in shifting your perception. When something is taken from you, your natural instinct is to resist, to fight, to prove your worth. But what if you leaned into it instead? What if instead of seeing rejection as a wound, you saw it as a signal, an invitation to explore a hidden aspect of yourself. Here is where inverse psychology becomes a tool rather than a trap. Imagine someone rejecting you, whether in love, in business, or in life. Instead of reacting with desperation, imagine withdrawing your energy entirely. You do not chase, you do not fight, you step back, and suddenly, the dynamic shifts. The power that rejection had over you begins to wane. The moment you detach, the very thing that rejected you begins to feel the loss of your presence. This is not manipulation, it is nature. When something is no longer readily available, its value increases. Jung understood that the unconscious mind operates in patterns, and when you disrupt those patterns, you change the game entirely. By embracing rejection instead of fearing it, you trigger the very force that makes others, and even your own mind, see you in a different light. But this is only the beginning. To truly transform rejection into desire, you must go deeper. You must understand the hidden forces that govern human attraction, ambition, and the relentless pursuit of what we cannot have. At the core of this transformation lies a paradox. The more you resist rejection, the more power it holds over you. The more you accept it, fully, without resentment, the more it loses its grip. Jung understood that the unconscious mind is governed by opposites, light and shadow, conscious and unconscious, desire and resistance. And in this duality, a strange truth emerges. What you reject, you empower. What you embrace, you dissolve. Consider the dynamics of human attraction. We've all seen it. The person who is too eager, too available, too willing to chase, is often the one left wanting. Meanwhile, the one who remains distant, mysterious, seemingly indifferent, becomes the object of desire. Why? Because the mind is drawn to what it cannot fully possess. The same applies to success, wealth, power, anything that holds emotional weight. The harder something is to attain, the more valuable it appears. Jung's exploration of the unconscious reveals that much of our suffering comes from attachment, clinging to something or someone that is already withdrawn. The solution, then, is not to grip tighter, but to let go entirely. This is where inverse psychology becomes a tool of mastery rather than a mere trick. When you step back from rejection, not as a strategy, but as a genuine release, you create space for desire to reverse its direction. This is why, so often, the moment you stop chasing, the thing you once longed for begins to chase you. This principle is not just anecdotal. It is embedded in the human psyche. It is why luxury brands limit availability, why the most sought-after individuals are often the least accessible, why forbidden ideas spread like wildfire. Scarcity breeds demand. The illusion of loss intensifies value. But this does not mean playing games or manipulating situations. The real power lies in internal transformation. It is about realizing that rejection is not a statement of your worth, but a reflection of perception. And perception can be altered. The moment you stop seeing rejection as a personal failure and start seeing it as a psychological lever, you reclaim control. Imagine standing before the thing that once rejected you, whether a person, an opportunity, or an idea you once chased. But now, instead of reaching for it, you simply observe. You detach. You remove the emotional charge that once gave it power over you. And in that moment, something remarkable happens. You feel lighter, stronger, and paradoxically, the very thing that once denied you begins to shift in your favor. This is the art of inverse psychology at its highest level. Not mere manipulation, but a deep understanding of the forces that govern human desire. The power of rejection is only as great as the meaning you assign to it. The moment you see it for what it truly is, a tool rather than a curse, you step into a realm of control that few ever reach. But what happens when this power is taken to its ultimate form? What lies beyond mere attraction and scarcity, beyond the reversal of roles in human dynamics? The answer is found in the final transformation, the moment where rejection no longer controls you because you have transcended the very need for external validation itself. At the highest level of understanding, rejection is not something to fear, manipulate, or even reverse. It is something to transcend. Jung believed that true individuation, the process of becoming whole, occurs when we integrate all aspects of ourselves, including those that society, others, and even our own minds have rejected. The ultimate transformation happens when you no longer seek external validation at all. Think of the people throughout history who wielded immense power, not just in influence but in self-mastery. The sages, the mystics, the revolutionaries. What set them apart? It was not their ability to win people over or to force the world to accept them. It was their complete indifference to whether or not they were accepted in the first place. They did not need to be desired, for they had already found fulfillment within themselves. And paradoxically, this very detachment made them the most compelling figures of all. This is the final stage of inverse psychology, not as a tactic, but as a natural state of being. When you no longer chase approval, rejection loses all meaning. The person who truly masters this does not need to manipulate situations to create desire. They do not need to withdraw in hopes that others will come running. Instead, they exist in a state of such deep self-sufficiency that their presence alone shifts the dynamics around them. Consider the power of silence, the restraint of a leader who does not beg for loyalty, but commands it through presence alone. The artist who does not create for applause, but for the sheer act of creation, and in doing so, becomes unforgettable. The individual who, upon being rejected, does not crumble, but instead moves forward with such unwavering certainty that those who once dismissed them begin to question their own judgment. This is not arrogance, it is sovereignty, and sovereignty is magnetic. When you internalize this truth, you become immune to rejection, not because you manipulate the system, but because you no longer see yourself as subject to it. You have transcended the need for approval, and in doing so, you have unlocked the ultimate paradox. The moment you no longer need something, it begins to gravitate toward you. Jung's philosophy is never about controlling others. It was about understanding the self, and in that understanding, a quiet yet unshakable power is born. The power to walk away without bitterness, to desire without desperation, to exist without needing permission. This is the final transformation, the moment where rejection no longer wounds, because it no longer defines, where desire no longer enslaves, because it is no longer external, where you no longer seek power, because you have become it. And in this state, you will find that the world no longer dictates your value. You do. Rejection is not the end of the road. It is the beginning of mastery. It is the fire that forges resilience, the force that reveals who you truly are beneath the illusions of need and validation. When you stop resisting rejection and start understanding it, you reclaim control, not just over how others perceive you, but over how you perceive yourself. Carl Jung taught us that true power lies in self-awareness. When you integrate every part of yourself, the accepted and the rejected, you become whole. And when you are whole, you no longer chase, you no longer beg, and you no longer fear loss. You simply exist in your fullest form, radiating an energy that cannot be ignored. So the next time you face rejection, do not see it as a wound. See it as a mirror. Look deeply into what it is teaching you. Lean into it, embrace it, and watch as the very thing you once feared transforms into the key to your greatest strength. Because in the end, the most powerful person is not the one who is never rejected. It is the one who no longer needs acceptance to know their own worth.